looking at the vehicle, at that moment I was like, man, like I might die right here. So my name is Juan. I'm 26 years old. Served in the United States Marine Corps from 2018 to 2022 as a 0481 landing support specialist.
Nice. What rank did you get out?
Corporal. Yeah, so I grew up in Northeast Oklahoma, super small town. Population is like 2,600. My graduating class was like 56, something like that. So it's just really peaceful environment for the most part. Yeah.
Your high school graduating class?
Yeah.
Oh wow, 56.
Yeah. So like everyone knew everyone like through elementary, middle school, and high school.
Yeah. Did you grow up with both parents? Do you have any siblings or?
I grew up with only my mom. My father wasn't in the picture, and my older sister. She's 11 years older than me, and she grew up pretty much just like raising me with my mom while she was working.
Yeah, talk to me about like what was your lifestyle like? Did you face any challenges? Was your childhood pretty smooth, or any events happened throughout your childhood?
Yeah, so my childhood was probably not as smooth as other people's childhoods. With a single mom and everything like that. She worked a lot. The first 10 years of my life was pretty nice. I grew up a devout Jehovah's Witness. So like I was like in a really small community, very loving community. A lot of these people like helped raise me and my sister. And it was just super loving. Up until I was about 10, we stopped going to the church, and I was kind of just like not like, how do I want to put this? Just kind of like not ripped away, but yeah, I just kind of like put out of that community. That's if you want to put it like that. And at that point, my sister, I think, moved away to California. And so it just left me at 10 years old with a single mother who was working all the time. And now leaving the church, she dealt with her own like personal issues like alcohol and stuff like that, which is something she struggled with most of her adult life. And it just left me at school as well, not knowing how to make friends. And it was really rough at like 10 years old, trying to make friends at school and like figuring out how to be a kid. As a Jehovah's Witness, you can't play sports, you can't like celebrate birthdays, Halloween, Christmas, stuff like that. So I was like excluded from everything like that, and I was always discouraged to not talk to kids and stuff like that. So having to like try to actually make friends with kids and stuff like that, it was really tough.
I'm curious, how come they believe in not playing sports or celebrating birthdays and all that?
It's just more of like they think of all these things like worldly things, like unnecessary like celebrations, stuff like that. Same thing with politics. They like discourage like people who are adults not to get into politics or worldly things. They just kind of have you stray away from all that and stay in the Jehovah's Witness like community and the congregation and like other congregations.
Now, at 10 years old, were you aware that your mom was struggling with alcohol?
I didn't really I don't think I ever remember a time up until we had made a trip to California, and then when we came back, I definitely noticed it started picking up a little bit, and then when we left the church, I started noticing it a lot. And then once my sister moved away, it was just me and my mom, and it was like super prominent thing in my life to see her, struggle with that.
Did you guys have a specific reason for leaving the church?
Yeah, it was just my mom. I think a couple people in the congregation had figured out that she like kind of drank regularly, and then she was like dating someone that she worked with, which he was outside of the church, and it was kind of frowned upon, and like among other things. I think that was probably the biggest reason. And once you kind of get excommunicated out of the church, but you have a chance to come back in. And my mom I think at that point she didn't want to go back into the church.
What inspired you to join the military?
Well, it was a lot of things. Going into like high school, I started playing sports after I left the church, and that was one thing I was really excited about. When I was in high school, I really liked playing football, and it was like something I really enjoyed. So like my plans were after to maybe like walk on at a college and like start coaching. Didn't happen. I didn't really take college that serious. like 2-3 years, like I was just making subpar grades. Like I was going to sleep at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was working full time and going to school full time, and like I was getting off at like 11 o'clock. Going to the gym at like 12 and going to sleep at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, expecting to go to class at like 8 o'clock. And I was missing a lot of class. And it just kind of led so I graduated 2014, 2015, 2016, I was going to school full time. And then at the end of 2016, my mom had a major stroke, and it was from her working. She started smoking a lot too after that. She kind of like quit the drinking, but it was just a lifetime of just like stress, alcohol, and then the smoke at the time, and diabetes as well. So it's just like multiple factors that caused the stroke.
Did she recover from it?
Not fully, no. Like her speech is like permanently impaired, as well as some of her cognitive ability, her short-term memory, and like her movement. Like it's just the whole left side of her body.
I'm sorry to hear that. What'd she think about you wanting to join the military?
She was scared just like any other parent, but at that point, it was just one of those things. It was my time. I was like 21 when I decided to join the Marines. So she just like supported me, but she was just like worried about like my safety and stuff like that, especially like in the military. Most people don't know, what goes on in the military. They just see like guns and stuff overseas and stuff like that. So it was more, just a little bit of worried for my safety.
Why'd you pick the Marines?
It was just, I always knew people like growing up, like I'd always met Marines, and then like knowing people that I went to high school with that like joined other branches of service. They went to like Army or Air Force, and then like just looking at every Marine that I've ever met, it was just like we're always held to like a higher standard. So it was just, I felt like me joining, it just gave me like a certain challenge that I wanted in life. Like I felt pretty stagnant at like 21, 22. And especially like in my little small town of Oklahoma, I was like, this is like the perfect chance for me to, see what I'm made of.
What was your recruiter experience like?
I mean, it was pretty straightforward. I remember when I first contacted him, I was working at a casino at the time, and I was working as a security guard. And at that time, like it was probably the easiest job of my life. And the people there were telling me at the time, you're a 21-year-old kid, you're a young, smart guy. If you stay here long enough, you'll move up the management ladder and you'll have a pretty solid job here. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And then I thought about it more. I was like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. And it was just one day, like after hours of just like walking around the casino, I finally went on my break. I remember it was like the first week of September 2017. I went on my break. I looked up on my phone the nearest recruiting office, and I already had like the Marine Corps in mind, but I called it. He just asked me the basic questions of like where I was from, so on and so forth, and then he got me like an in-person appointment. Like 2 days later, I went after work, and the rest is history. He just kind of asked me, all the basic recruiter questions.
Yeah. Did you get to pick your job?
I did. Yeah. I took the test, see what I qualified for and what was open at the time, and there was a lot of things that I was looking to do. Comms was one of them, and then he showed me this logistics contract. It was like ammo tech, embarkation specialist, and landing support. He told me I was going to be an embarker. He's like, yeah, like it's kind of like a desk job. He's like, I look at you, you're probably not the infantry type. And I agreed with him, but he's like, this is probably a good thing for you to do. I was like, all right, let's do it. And I signed a contract. This was October 2017.
So you signed in 2017, but you didn't go till 2018, right?
Yeah, it took me 11 months, almost a year to go to boot camp. My sister was like in the process of doing a nursing program, and she fully supported me too, because at the time, both her and I were taking care of my mom. And she just like, hey, just wait till June until I'm done with my nursing program, and then like go do your thing. I'm like, all right, cool. And I told my recruiter that, and he was like totally fine with it. He didn't give me any pushback or anything like that. Great guy. And he's like, I'm gonna do my best to keep this contract for you because I know you really want it. I know how important it is to, you know, stay here and help your family out. So he did, and you know, come June is like, yeah, 8 months later, my sister does her thing, finishes the nursing program, and he gives me a call. He's like, hey man, it got pushed back like 2 weeks. I'm like, all right, that's cool. It just gives me a little bit more time to, I don't know, prepare mentally, I guess. And then he gives me another call. It got pushed back again, man. It's gonna be like the end of July. I was like, all right, cool. And then gives me another call. Hey, it got pushed back to August. I started getting frustrated at this point, and I was like, I've been waiting this long. Like, am I ever gonna go like to boot camp and be a Marine, you know? And then finally, it got pushed back one more time, and it was like, your ship date is September 3rd, 2018.
Talk to me about boot camp. What was that experience like for you?
I think for me, it was a big shock, just like anyone else. And looking back on it now, you know, the things that we were doing in, you know, recruit training were not like necessarily hard. You know, you're getting 8 hours of sleep. It's just a lot of physical. It's physically taxing, but for myself, it was more not mentally taxing, but just I think I had anxiety going into recruit training that I hadn't addressed in the past. And I found myself a lot of times just kind of like freezing up and just not knowing what to do, or just like unable to do a certain task. And like I said, it's not like the things you do in recruit training are like necessarily like rocket scientist hard, but it's just I found like it was something that I really noticed, and I never really thought about until like I was put under like the amount of stress that, you know, any recruit is put under. So it was just like a very eye-opening thing to see that this thing that I hadn't been addressed for these many years, you know, at 22 years old.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you have any memories of boot camp? Any stories you could share with us?
I think probably one of the memories that I do remember is kind of a funny one. It was after we had just got done doing our swim qual, and like there's the drill instructors were like, hey, like you guys are finishing up pretty quick. You guys go back in groups of 2 and just like go by yourselves and whatever. And I remember I was like one of the first ones back. It was like I was like the second or third group back of 2, and I walk in and I see this kid. He was a little like country kid from Arkansas, and he was crying. I'm like, what is going on? And our knowledge had just told us to like start like get on the quarterdeck and start like doing mountain climbers and all that. And then he made him like sit there and watch everyone get IT'd. Like as everyone was coming in, they started getting IT'd right away. And he made him watch because he was the first one back, and he like fell asleep on his sea bag.
Oh.
Yeah, and like he like literally the whole platoon came back and they all got IT'd in front of him, and he was just sitting there crying. He was like maybe 5'2", like 100 pounds soaking wet. And he was just like, you know, a little like 17-year-old kid, and just like watching everyone like feeling like a piece of shit because he fell asleep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So after boot camp, I imagine you went to your MOS school?
Yeah.
Well, actually, where did you go, like MCT?
Yeah, non-combat MOSs went to MCT. Did that West Coast on Camp Pendleton up at SOI, and then went to, got my orders to be a 0481, and then went to Camp Johnson, which is on Camp Lejeune. Did that, and
what exactly is a 0481?
it's a landing sports specialist. For those in the Marine Corps, is a red patcher. So pretty much our like main job is just like making sure cargo vehicles get off properly, like on ships, planes, trains, and another part of the job is just hooking up cargo under helicopters. That's like the most dangerous part of our job. That's like the thing that they focused on in the schoolhouse too. That was like the culminating event. Mm-hmm. I got there January, first week of January, and even though the schoolhouse is only 5 weeks long, I was there for 6 months. they were so backed up, and they could only have like 40 at a time in the class, and there was like that many people there. So like it's just me and these holding barracks with a bunch of other Marines just sitting around waiting, and everyone's getting all these brand new Marines out of boot camp getting super fucked up, causing all kinds of trouble.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were waiting around for months to go
Yeah.
to school?
Yeah. Like I said, I got there the first week of January, and I didn't graduate until July 3rd.
Did you have like a regimented structure to your day?
We had I think 2 staff sergeants in charge of us, and day to day, and they would just tell us they would get information. We'd get information in the morning, take accountability, and we'd just go to this basketball court and just sit there. That's all we did.
Oh,
I'm not even kidding.
what a waste of time, huh?
And it's just for the simple fact that they had nothing, they had nothing for us to do. They'd try to get us to do volunteer events, help around, do other things in Camp Johnson as much as they could. But yeah, for the most part, we just sat around. So it's just a recipe for a lot of people to get in trouble.
Yeah. You have any stories about anybody getting into trouble?
I think I remember one. I had, the funny thing is, so I had shown up, and this kid that I knew from my RS, my recruiting station, I had recognized him. I was like, "Hey man, what's up?" And he's like, "Hey dude, how's it going?" Not 2 weeks later, I guess I found out that he had gotten in trouble. For underage drinking, and he was it was blatant. He got in trouble, and then he was on restriction, and he ended up breaking restriction and drinking again. And it was something along the lines of he went up to the duty and tried to swing on the duty. He was a private because he had gotten busted down, and the duty took a big old swing on him and just knocked him out, and in front of everyone. This was probably a Friday or Saturday, and I never saw him after that. And it was just super funny because it was just this guy from my hometown area, and yeah, that was a super great experience.
Wow. So when you finally got dropped to your actual school, what was that like?
I mean, it was cool to finally learn my job. It was like I said, I waited 11 months to go to boot camp. Now I waited this long to get my job, and now I'm finally learning my stuff. It was pretty cool. The job was pretty straightforward. Just the cargo vehicle stuff coming on and off the ships. That's the main important thing. So when you hit the fleet, you're helping unload for a deployment, a MEU or something like that. That was a bulk of the job. And then the cool part was going under helicopters and just hooking up stuff, ammo cans, MREs, stuff like that. In training, whenever you do training on Pendleton or Lejeune, they have these big 10K beams that you pretty much, it's just a makeshift load.
Yeah. Can you walk us through that process? What happens? A helicopter is flying at this time that you're hooking up the cargo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk? How does that work?
So pretty much you go, depending on what the load is, you prepare it to be picked up, and you'll beforehand you're in contact with the squadron, the pilots, whatever, and you figure out how many lifts you're going to do in training. So let's say we're doing training on Camp Pendleton. It's more of hey, we're going to do 10 picks. We're going to switch pilots and do another 10 picks. And you go to the load before they get there, hook everything up. It's on a sling. They have 4 legs, depending. Usually, so that was wrong. So it depends. You can either do a dual point, which is 2 and 2, or you can do a single point, and there's 4 legs. I'm kind of rusty. But yeah, you just prepare accordingly, make sure everything's nice and snug, and then pretty much there's 3 people under the whole time. There's just a safety. He has a radio. He or she has a radio, and they're talking to the commander, and they'll say, "Hey, the bird's about to come in." And then you have someone who is called a static, and they have this big hook, and they like tap the hook because there's so much static from the helicopter. I forgot how many volts. I don't know what the voltage is, but like if you don't like ground it out, you can. There's people that have died from it. I heard a story, Camp Johnson. Someone had lost a testicle.
What?
Someone didn't ground it out properly, and they had lost a whole testicle. But so the safety's under there, making sure that everything's good. Getting comms. The static just has this hook. They're just static and like grounding it out, and then you have just the hook man, just like here you go, hooks, and then like you just make sure everything's snug whenever you're walking away from the load, and make sure nothing gets caught on anything. You walk out, and then helicopter picks up the load and then goes and does the cycle, comes back, and then you just repeat the process.
So you got to make sure, I imagine, that it's there's not too much weight, right? Because the helo can only lift a certain amount of weight, things like that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that the HST commander and the pilots talk about, like what they're going to lift exactly. So like, in training, you'll talk to the HST commander, will talk to like the ops chief or OPSO of a certain squadron, and they'll say, hey, we're going to lift like tires, we're going to lift like an MRE pallet, and then the team will prepare accordingly. Bring a net, they're going to bring like so many slings. So it's just kind of like a beforehand preparation. It's not like a kind of like on the fly, like, winging it type thing.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
So once I graduated from the schoolhouse, I got dropped to 1st Transportation Support Battalion, 1st TSB, and it was essentially a motor T company. And 1st Transportation Support Battalion, LS company. So we had a whole company of red patchers, and we were not the main priority in that battalion. It was very much so like we're more the troublemakers. A lot of like drug issues in the battalion, or in LS company specifically, and like we didn't get to do as many like external lifts with loads, do that type of training. Like it was very like very sporadic. For me anyway. My first 5-6 months in the fleet, I didn't do that many, and it was just more just like trying to, as a junior Marine, trying to like sit around and like make yourself useful type of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of drug issues were there?
Well, I remember one in specific. There was an actual drug ring that happened in, more specifically, LS company in my section, and my roommate was part of that at one point. And I remember when everything was happening, I had actually moved rooms because his NCOs, because he was a different platoon, were like beefing with my NCOs about like field day. Like his side of the room was like not clean enough, stuff like that. So like I moved. This was November, and then December we were helping offload the 15th MEU. They had just got back from deployment, and we saw in the group chat a bunch of people had got called back to Camp Pendleton. We were down at Naval Base San Diego, and later that day we found out a bunch of people like got busted for this drug ring that they were part of. And a lot of people like following that got they popped hot for coke, a lot of stuff like that. So it was just like my experience, my first 6 months to a year in LS company. I just saw that all these like issues that that was happening.
What kind of things were those? Were they just doing drugs, or were they selling drugs?
I think I'm a little like rusty on like the details, but I just know that there's a couple people like dealing them with people from like different units on Pendleton, and then there's people like in the unit that were also consuming them and buying them. Mm-hmm.
Wow. When you got dropped to your unit as a brand new Marine, did you have to go through any type of initiation?
I'd probably say the one initiation that we did was like the first like external lift, the HST. It was a night one, so whenever you do those, it was kind of a tradition to, you had glow sticks, right? And these glow sticks you would put on the back of your flax, and like they also put them on the hooks just so you could see during the night. And then coming back, it was kind of tradition for red patchers to, on their first HST, to break the glow sticks open and drink it. Yeah.
What the fuck would happen when you drank it?
Well, I remember, I forgot who was there when I did mine, but all I remember is I did it. I'm like, fuck it, dude, let's do it. And I cracked it open and like put it back. I immediately spit everything out. There's like glass in there too.
Oh.
So yeah.
Now you went on deployment, right?
Yeah, I went on deployment in 2020. So I hit the fleet 2019, July 2019, and 2020 ended up going on a training exercise with my company. That happened during COVID. We left February 2020 and then came back. COVID had hit, so everything was different. While I was on quarantine coming back from that training exercise, I found out, well, someone had texted me. They're like, hey, do you want to go on a special purpose MAGTF? That's all they said. They didn't tell me any details. I'm like, yeah, sure. So that's what ended up leading me to go on deployment October 2020.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
So October 2020, we kind of had a workup beforehand. We didn't have the usual workup. Most people get like 6 months. We had like 4.5 months. And so it was kind of like everything was condensed. I remember, probably the only thing that I remember very vividly was me going to the field for a week. I went with my friend Andrew. So when we went on deployment, we were attached to a motor T platoon. And yeah, it was just us 10 red patchers attached to this motor T platoon. But at the time when we went to the field, it was just me and Andrew. We were the only red patchers there. And then it was all these motor T guys. And then they're doing kind of like a training exercise for 5 days. They're doing like all their, all their formations with their trucks, how a convoy would conduct themselves, in country. And it was just simulated in Camp Pendleton. So pretty much me and him were just like the bump team. We were just like a couple extra rifles in the back of the truck. And we were just like, pointing our rifle here or there whenever they pulled to the side and stuff like that. Yeah, I think the biggest thing I remember from that was it was like a culminating event. And first of all, it was this certain part of Camp Pendleton. And I remember before we went there, I think it was our platoon sergeant, but he's like, hey, if something happens on this hill coming up, just jump out of the truck. And they're like, why are you telling us that? And I guess that specific hill, there's been like 2 or 3 accidents where multiple Marines had died, during training. So yeah, that was a thing. And I remember like the culminating event was like we had to escort our platoon commander, and it was kind of like a village elder type thing. We had to go to the top of the hill. We had to escort him. He had to like negotiate something with these village elders, and they were actual contractors that the Marine Corps had hired that they spoke Arabic. And they also had like a village, like a simulated village. And there was probably like 30 people. They all spoke Arabic, and they had to like act like they were like hostile, like people in country. And like they were just, I remember this one guy specifically, I think I was in a Humvee, and he didn't have an arm, I remember. But like he jumped up on the Humvee, and then as we got out trying to like calm everyone down, he was just like, he was definitely saying some slurs in Arabic, but then he was like taking people's radios and just fucking chucking it and stuff like that. And it got really, they made it seem so real at the time. Yeah, that was probably one of the coolest experiences, even though at the time, in that environment, it didn't seem like fake. It seemed super real.
Why did they call you guys red patchers?
Yeah, so in the Marine Corps, we're the only MOS that is allowed to wear, it's a red patch on the cover, and then they have it like right here, just a little red patch. And it is a World War II tradition. So whenever Marines were storming the beaches, there was like the landing shore party, and then there's like the infantry Marines. There's infantry Marines who would stay back, saying that they were part of the landing shore party that was like getting all this gear off. So like to mitigate that, they put red patches on their covers and their camis, and that's where it came from. It's just part of that. Yeah, it's just like a little tradition, and it's like stuck ever since.
So you guys get attached to different like multiple different units. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because I want to say, I remember some of the combat engineers that were attached to us had those red patches.
Yeah, it depends. I know my last unit I was at, these landing support battalions, they rate these combat engineers, and so they're allowed to wear red patches. Technically, the only MOS that is allowed to wear them is the 0481s. And the last unit I came from, it was just kind of one of those things. If you were a part of the battalion, you wore the red patches. So I was on Al Jaber, Kuwait from like October to the beginning of December. And they were planning for like a retrograde to Saudi Arabia. I get sent to Saudi Arabia January 1st. I land in Saudi Arabia January 1st. When we get there, they're telling us like, hey, like you're gonna be doing like bunker drills on a regular basis. There's a lot of like activity going on as far as just like IDF and stuff like that. So we were doing that like twice a week, stuff like that. It was like kind of not a thing. Eventually, I think it was like February. My birthday is February 20th, so I kind of remember it was a little bit before or after. I used to get up like super early in the morning. Everyone in my tent, there's like 5-6 guys in the tent. They would always sleep in, but I'd get up at like fucking 5 o'clock in the morning, go eat breakfast, and then I'd like go to the gym 3 hours later. But I remember that morning I had got back from breakfast and the sun was like all the way up. And whenever they would do the drills, they would say like exercise, exercise. And then the intercom came on, but they just said alarm, whatever. Yeah, like whatever code they had. And I looked at someone in the tent and like, they didn't say exercise. And I kind of walked outside and I didn't even have like my pants on at the time. And then I go to the back to my rack and I grab my Kevlar and my flak and I didn't even have my pants on at the time. And all of a sudden, usually during the exercise, you get like 5 minutes or something like that to get your flak on and get ready and then go to the bunker. At that time, I was grabbing my flak. I had barely put it on. I didn't have my pants on. The alarm goes off. Everyone's going to the bunker right now. It's the real thing. And like, I remember I ran all the way to the bunker, like pulling my pants up. And yeah, nothing happened. It was just like, it was a very close call. I think it was like 5-10 minutes away. There's like a possible like drone strike or something like that. It was funny after the fact too. I think the next day we were in one of the trucks and we were going somewhere off from where we stayed. And there was this American radio and I think it was an Air Force radio, but it was just, they're like, hey, good morning, everyone. This is so-and-so. It's February 18th. Hopefully everyone's doing good. And then the guy on the radio is like, well, you might not be doing so good if you're in Riyadh right now. And he just kind of like popped a joke about, someone, like a drone strike. And I was like, wow, that's pretty like fucked up sense of humor, but I like it. So another story, it wasn't that specific deployment with the MAGTAF. This was the train exercise Native Fury. And so during that training exercise, us red patches were just in charge of all the cargo and gear coming off the ships. And I remember I was on the beach the whole time. So as everything rolled off, I was, saying X amount of vehicles are coming off. We're looking at the load plan, make sure everything reflects correctly. But during that, they had like PFCs, Lance Corporals, doing the ECP at the COC. And it's kind of like Firewatch. And me and my friend had Firewatch this one night, ECP watch, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We were just trying to stay awake, watching like movies on our phone and stuff. And this vehicle like comes up super fast. There's a bathroom like out in the distance. The vehicle comes up super fast. This guy like, he doesn't run, but he walks really fast. And he goes to the bathroom. This sergeant comes out and he's like, who the fuck was that? And we're like, I don't know. Like, it was just some guy. And they were on high alert because someone like a week or two before, it was just this guy on base. It was a shady character. He was like taking pictures of like different angles of the COC. So the sergeant comes out. He's like, if he comes out and points his phone and tries to take a picture, point your rifle at him. Because we were all carrying rifles at the time, but we didn't have any magazines like on us. We weren't condition 3 or anything like that. But okay. And like 2 or 3 more people come out. we go to his vehicle, and at that point I was like, I realized how serious the situation might become, and I was like, well, shit, I better put my flak on. And I did that, and we're like looking at the vehicle. At that moment I was like, man, like I might die right here. This could be like a suicide bomber, just a shady character. Everyone's like taking pictures inside. The guy comes out of the bathroom, and it's an American contractor. He was in one of the lots, like during the offload, and he pretty much just said, he's like, I didn't want to go take a shit in the porta potty. Like I wanted to come to a real bathroom. And so it turns out to be an American contractor. Like, all right, see you later, man. And he ends up getting stuck right there. He was parked in the sand, and like he tried for like 2 or 3 minutes. So we'd spent like 10 minutes trying to like help him. Yeah. So it turned from like thinking I'm going to die to helping this guy get his vehicle out of the sand.
Wow.
There's one more story from deployment with the MAGTAF. It was towards the end, and we all had like, on the flight line, we all had like duties and stuff like that. Everyone had like a specific billet or job. And I remember at one point, it was towards the end, like I had messed something up on the manifest for like passengers, and I had added someone. So they're like, hey, you fucked up, you're just gonna drive the bus right now. And like we had like this bus that we had passengers that we would take to the flight line, people who were like flying out. And I remember one night I had dropped people off. They had just come back, and I dropped them off at whatever like barracks they were at. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I was just like trying to get out of there really quick. I just wanted to get back to the flight line. I forgot what I had going on. I don't know. I wanted to get back to the flight line like super fast. So I put the bus in reverse, and like I back all the way up, and then I run into a post. Nothing happened. It wasn't like no windows broke or anything like that. The bus was still serviceable, but it was just like it was just such a big deal. And they're like, okay, you fucked that up. You're just gonna do COVID forms. And I did COVID forms for the rest of the deployment, and then our replacements had come out, and we just kind of let them take the reins, and one of them ended up like backing the bus up too and breaking the window.
Oh, shit.
So, and I think something like that happened before we had got there. Someone had like not with the bus, but one of the like John Deere tractors that would use to move stuff. They had like busted one of the windows out and that. So like I think it was just like kind of inevitable that something like that was going to happen.
Why did you choose to leave, and what has the transition been like for you so far?
I think going into the Marine Corps, I just wanted a chance for me to like, it was more of a stepping stone. I knew that the Marine Corps would help me like pay for education, and I just wanted to do something with my life. And I love the Marine Corps. I have no regrets. I think it just probably wasn't something I was gonna see myself doing for another 2, 3, 4 enlistments. So I think, especially toward that last year, I was really in my mind preparing to, see what my life looked like outside of the Marine Corps. So like school, getting a degree, establishing myself here in California, because I didn't want to go back to Oklahoma, and I have family here in California, a big extended family that I've been away from my whole life, and now I'm starting to get to know them. So I was like, I feel like this is my home now. So I just really had to prepare mentally to really transition out.
Mm. So you had family out here this whole time that you didn't know growing up, or?
Yeah, like I had come out to California multiple times. My mom, before she had me, she was in a marriage, and she had my sister, and she lived in California for about 15 years, I want to say. And so a lot of my family is already established in like LA County and Orange County, Inland Empire. So it was a thing of me throughout my childhood coming out and visiting like here and there. So I knew I had a family out here. It was just, I had seen them on a regular basis pretty much. I think the biggest thing that I learned from the Marine Corps, especially just the high tempo environment that a lot of Marines find themselves in. I would say, going to recruit training, I found out that I had a lot of anxiety, and whenever I'm put under a lot of stress, and I feel like just the experiences that I had in that high tempo environment, and a lot of times I my anxiety just had me freeze up. Like I went internal and stuff like that. So like once I left the Marine Corps, I figured out very quickly that a lot of things that used to stress me out before, stuff like not even running errands, but probably stuff like paying bills, like school. Like here recently, I went to school in the fall and I had like 5 classes, and I found myself, I had like 2 or 3 papers due, I had a project due, I had to study for 2 tests. This was all within like a week's time. And I was telling my sister this, and she's like, you're like dealing with this so well. All of this is rolling off your shoulders. Like before, the person that I knew before you went to the military, he would have been freaking out, and she saw it. She lived with me when I was going to college and working full time, and now I feel like I'm just able to deal with stress in such a way that, you know, these mountain of tasks get stacked up, and I'm able to like really, what's the word I want to use? Not like compartmentalize, but just really like put things in perspective. So all these tasks that are coming up to the ceiling, I'm able to put them in front of me and just get them done one by one. And I remember a professor too, she was asking like the whole class, she's like, is everyone okay? Like everyone's like super stressed out. I see people crying. And someone else had asked me like, are you not like stressed out from finals? And I'm like, not really, no. Like everything's like, I did all my work, I did all my homework, and like I have nothing to worry about. And I didn't have anything to worry about. Like I aced all my finals and all that stuff. So I think just like being put under so much stress and like just that go mentality, it really, coming out to the civilian side really showed me that, you know, anything put in front of me, I think is...
Gave you the discipline to do it.
Gave me the discipline and really like to operate under a lot of like stress.
So were you in a classroom environment going to school? Like,
Yeah.
It wasn't online. You were actually going and sitting in a classroom?
Yeah, I was in a classroom environment going to school.
Did you struggle at all being in a classroom full of college students after just spending 4 years in the Marine Corps?
It was definitely a little bit of an adjustment. I thought I was going to do just fine because I told myself I've done college before. I've had jobs before. Like I know how to interact with people. But being pulled out of the Marine Corps for 4 years, and that's all you know, that's your whole environment. And then, seeing these 17, 18-year-old kids, I think especially me, like being the Marine I like would sit in the front, try to answer questions as best as I could. And I would just, it would kind of, I would see like other students that I had class with, and they were like, you know, straight out of high school, and they didn't take it as seriously or something like that. So I would never be the person to say like, hey, like shut up, like I'm a veteran, like this is not how it's supposed to be or something like that. But I definitely, I realized just my mindset from when I first went to college to now is just like so much different. And I realized how it was weird for me to see like an actual, like it was almost like an outsider perspective of how other people like viewed college and everything else.
Awesome, man. So what are you doing now?
Yeah, so like after the fall semester, I did well on all my classes, and I was doing awesome. I loved all my professors, and I kind of just looked at myself again, and I was like, is this really what I want to do, like long term, like on the other side, looking at the other side of like a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, like all these careers that I have in front of me, is that something I really want to do? And I looked at myself like, not really, no. And I just kind of like went through like a couple options in my head. A prior service recruiter reached out to me and like told me, the opportunities the reserves had. And, I knew in my head I wasn't going to do it, but I just still like was keeping the option open. I told him like, hey, like, I'll just sleep on it. I'll get back to you tomorrow. And then I remember that night I had a dream, and it was pretty profound in the sense that like I had almost like a near-death experience in the dream, and it just really put things into perspective, just as far as like what I want to do that makes me happy in life. So I kind of went through my options again for a couple more days, and I had a friend that I served with. He got into like firefighting. And I just kind of looked at that. I was like, well, that's something I can do, you know, like it's not that bad of a gig. And it kind of gives me that camaraderie again, just that sense of community. I can stay here in California and, you know, still stay close to my family and all that. So I was like, this is like an amazing option. So right now I'm going to school, taking fire classes, and then the upcoming fall, I'm like geared up to apply for a fire academy.
Nice. Awesome, man. We're going to wrap it up. Any last words before we cut the tape?
I would probably just say, like, people transitioning out, have a plan getting out, and then just try to like surround yourself with like a good support system. You might not have family, but find like a good group of like friends, like just a good positive, uplifting like support system around you, because if you don't have that, you're gonna be really lonely. Yeah.
Right on, Juan. Thanks for being here, brother. Semper Fi.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I got bad thoughts that make my mind scared. Hold me hostage and they don't fight fair. Who gon' pray for me and wipe on my tears? Who gon' save me if you not right here? Move this darkness and make my sight clear. Take me your way, cause I don't like here. Ghosts of my past, they fill in the night air. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares.